Type 4 has ultimate ideals for both work and relationships. 4s believe that it is only possible to gain approval from others by being unique and deeply authentic. Their style displays creative flair and deep compassion for others, but they often feel insufficient when they cannot live up to their own ideals. They maintain an image of specialness and emotional intensity that may make it difficult for them to value the ordinary experiences of life, to handle administrative details, or to maintain a steady purpose.
Yeah, I know that I'm a 4, I think, because of a couple of reasons. One of them is sort of a tendency to be drawn towards drama and things that are fairly dramatic. And secondly, a tendency to become bored with things that are ordinary and really search out the things that are extraordinary, looking for that little missing piece of something that would make the whatever was around me complete. I tend to be so focused on where I'm going that I'm not always the best person at bringing people along, as it were. I tend to be a very hands-off manager where, I will try and motivate people and I'll try and give them information that I would want to have in that situation. But there are many situations where I won't take the time to understand exactly what it is they need in order to go from where they are to where the goal might be, or to where they need to go. The other thing I think that I do is I have a tendency to leave people behind. As a point 4, I tend to sometimes get lost in my own vision or get lost in my own world. And being aware of that is something that is a very useful knowledge, and I look for clues a lot. I don't go at problems directly head on very often. I tend to go at them, sort of come in from the side, and I sort of couple that with some intuition and move in whatever direction I feel is appropriate. And there are pluses and minuses about that. The pluses are that I have a very easy time in sort of gathering the information that I see and making a decision and say that's the way we want to go. And that's pretty effective towards getting something done. The place where I think it's weak sometimes is that it doesn't always take into account what the effects will be on sort of other people or other things around me. Well, I don't much care for authority. I guess I really enjoy being in a position where I'm deciding where to go and I'm making the decision. That's a very comfortable position for me. It's not the same as, it's not a grandstanding position. A lot of times I will lead from behind, if you will. In other words, I'll work with Ann or with somebody else, and I will be making strategic decisions that somebody else will then carry out. I don't have any problem saying that, gee, I screwed up on that, I made a mistake, and mea culpa. And a lot of times I will do that even in situations where perhaps that doesn't really reflect what happened. And I'm not sure that's so good either, because that can sort of skew the organization in a way that people don't really accept their responsibility in a situation. Well, I tend to listen for a long, long time before I say anything when it has to do with, well, actually almost any situation. This gets back to when we were talking earlier about decision-making style. Part of what I usually do in any situation is I'll spend a long time listening and trying to understand what people are saying, where they're coming from, what's going on with them, whether it's about a situation that involves work or a situation that involves somebody's personal life or their employment or whatever. And then usually after listening for some period of time, I'll digest it and come back with a measured response. But it tends to be not a lot of interaction. And one of the things for a 4 in particular that is disarming for a lot of people is the intensity that we tend to have. And it's just, that's just sort of a way of being. And I think before I did any work with the Enneagram, I was relatively unaware of that because it seems very natural. Things that, you're very intense, but you don't feel like you're intense to yourself. And beginning to have an appreciation for that, I think really sort of enabled me to see what the impact of that would be on other people. And just, quite honestly, people can't take that or they're not comfortable with that for, a lot of the time. For myself, I tend to, when I get into any sort of a stressful situation, I get very heady. And I get very analytical, and I get dollars and cents numbers, whatever it is, and I'm a lot more effective if I drop down into my heart and sort of use some of those natural things that come along with being a 4. And it's a hard thing to do because there's a lot of protection in being analytical, but yet I'm far more effective if I can be a little more open and working more from my heart. There's a tendency, I think, on the part of the four, when this is not quite so obvious as feelings and relationships with other people, but there's a tendency when somebody doesn't agree with you or somebody doesn't want to go along with the way you want to go, to exclude them and shut them out. And this is one of the things I think that you have to sort of guard against. Well, I always figure what's missing is just beyond my reach. I tend to like life on the edge, if you will, and that's sort of where I look for what's missing.
A major leadership development task for Type 4 involves learning to provide steady leadership in service of accomplishing their passionately held ideals.